County Affairs will come to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Niavi Criado,
Here.
Representative Stuckey,
Here.
Rep. Tinderholt,
Present.
Rep. Rosenthal,
Here.
Rep. Slayton,
Here.
Rep. Jones,
Present.
Rep. Gerties,
Here.
Rep. Orr,
Here.
Rep. Schatzline.
A quorum is present. We want to welcome members and guests. If anyone here wishes to testify and has not registered, please go now and register in the kiosks in the hallway behind the hearing room. And due to the number of witnesses who have registered and to accommodate all who wish to testify, there will be a time limit of 3 minutes per witness during the public testimony period. Witnesses are not permitted to yield their time in order to give another witness more time to speak. If anyone no longer wishes to testify, please step up now and inform our assistant clerks, and we will begin by considering some pending business. The chair lays out House Bill 424 by Chairwoman Thompson as pending business. The chair moves that House Bill 424 be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Niavi Criado,
Aye.
Vice Chair Stuckey,
Aye.
Rep. Tinderholt. Sorry, Rep. Tinderholt,
What bill number is it?
424.
Nay.
Rep. Rosenthal,
Aye.
Rep. Slayton,
No.
Rep. Jones,
Aye.
Rep. Gerties,
Aye.
Rep. Orr,
Aye.
Rep. Schatzline.
Having 7 ayes and 2 nays, House Bill 424 passes. The chair lays out House Bill 492 by Dean Craddock as pending business. Vice Chair Stuckey offers a committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the substitute is adopted. Representative Gerties moves that House Bill 492 as substituted be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Niavi Criado,
Aye.
Vice Chair Stuckey,
Aye.
Representative Tinderholt,
Aye.
Representative Rosenthal,
Aye.
Rep. Slayton, Rep. Jones, Rep. Gerties,
Aye.
Rep. Orr, Rep. Schatzline.
Aye.
There being 9 ayes, 0 nays, the motion prevails. Chair lays out House Bill 784 by Representative Ordaz as pending business. Representative Rosenthal moves that House Bill 784 be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Niavi Criado,
Aye.
Vice Chair Stuckey,
Aye.
Rep. Tinderholt,
Nay.
Rep. Rosenthal,
Aye.
Rep. Slayton.
This is 784.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Rep. Jones,
Aye.
Rep. Gerties,
Aye.
Rep. Orr, Rep. Schatzline.
8. There being 8 ayes, 1 nay, House Bill 784 passes. The chair lays out House Bill 879 by Representative Cook as pending business. The chair moves that House Bill 879 be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Niavi Criado,
Aye.
Vice Chair Stuckey,
Aye.
Rep. Tinderholt,
Nay.
Rep. Rosenthal,
Aye.
Rep. Slayton,
No.
Rep. Jones,
Aye.
Rep. Gerties,
Aye.
Rep. Orr, Rep. Schatzline.
Having 7 ayes, 2 nays, House Bill 879 passes. The chair lays out House Bill 1382 by Representative Hernandez as pending business. Vice Chair Stuckey offers a committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The substitute is adopted. The chair moves that House Bill 1382 as substituted be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Niavi Criado,
Aye.
Vice Chair Stuckey,
Aye.
Rep. Tinderholt,
Aye.
Rep. Rosenthal,
Aye.
Rep. Slayton,
Aye.
Rep. Jones,
Aye.
Rep. Gerties,
Aye.
Rep. Orr, Rep. Schatzline?
Aye.
9.
There being 9 ayes, 0 nays, the motion prevails. The chair lays out House Bill 1621 by Chair Moody as pending business. Representative Orr offers a committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The substitute is adopted. Representative Slayton moves that House Bill 1621 as substituted be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Neave Criado?
Aye.
Vice Chair Stuckey?
Aye.
Rep. Tinderholt?
Nay.
Rep. Rosenthal?
Aye.
Rep. Slayton? Rep. Jones?
Aye.
Rep. Gerties?
Aye.
Rep. Orr?
Aye.
Rep. Schatzline?
Aye.
There being 8 ayes, 1 nay, the motion prevails. Chair lays out House Bill 1925 by Representative Harless. Chairman Harless is pending business. Representative Schatzline offers a committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the substitute is adopted. Vice Chair Stuckey moves that House Bill 1925 as substituted be reported favorably to the full House with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Neave Criado?
Aye.
Vice Chair Stuckey?
Aye.
Rep. Tinderholt?
Nay.
Rep. Rosenthal?
Aye.
Rep. Slayton?
Aye.
Rep. Jones?
Aye.
Rep. Gerties?
Aye.
Rep. Orr?
Aye.
Rep. Schatzline?
Aye.
There being 8 ayes, 1 nay, the motion prevails. And members, that concludes the bills today that we are considering for a vote, and we will now move to the bills posted for today's hearing. And the chair lays out House Bill 2304 and recognizes Chairman Kimple to explain.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. This bill simply amends code to specify that Nixon Hospital District has the authority to contract indebtedness or borrow money for the repair and expansion of facilities. Though current code implies that the district has the ability to borrow money for these purposes, district leadership would like the code to more explicitly reflect that. This is modeled after the abilities of many other local hospital districts across the state who have made similar requests. And we do have a member with the Vice President of the Nixon Hospital District with us today to answer questions. Just to make sure there's no taxes, no bonds. Money comes from USDA. Land is gifted, and the money borrowed will be paid back over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, are there any questions for Chairman Kimple? Okay, if there are no further questions, we'll proceed with testimony. And there are no witnesses registered. If somebody would like to register, they can register with the clerk. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2304? Okay. Chair recognizes Chairman Kimple to close.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. It just much needed facilities in Nixon, Texas. Doing it without any cost to the taxpayers. With that, I'd consider y'all's favorable consideration, and I close.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman. House Bill 2304 will be left pending at this time. Chair lays out House Bill 2957 and recognizes Representative Baumgartner. And Vice Chair Stuckey offers a committee substitute. Chair recognizes Representative Baumgartner to explain.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, Dr. Vice Chair, members. I'll lay out before you House Bill 2957, which basically would allow for firefighters on their 5th year of service to have access to a full cancer screening, and every 3 years of service afterwards to allow them to have a cancer screening. It is no surprise that these fine men and women are subject to chemicals that put them in a higher category for cancer. And in most municipalities, the only way that they can get the screening is if they qualify by age or if they qualify by family history. And so this would basically give them an option on their 5th year if they choose to do this. And I want to emphasize this is not a mandate for them. I'm a big believer in the phrase, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. This would just dig the pond and have a source of water for the horses to drink. And I do have a few witnesses here, and with that, I reserve my right to close and take questions.
Okay, members, are there any questions? Chair recognizes Vice Chair Stuckey.
Thank you, Representative, Madam. Representative Baumgartner, is there a cost to the state in having this done?
No, sir. We got the fiscal note back, and there is no cost to the state.
Okay.
And actually, it was my belief and my assumption going in that this would actually be a cost-saving measure. And we found that to be true because when firefighters are lost on the job, you're losing wisdom, you're losing time, you're losing valuable training money that the municipalities put into this, plus the costs on the back end of payouts, death benefits, and things like that. Preventative care is so much more valuable to you. Keep your firefighters longer, and you actually save money to your municipality. So this is actually a cost saving.
And did I hear correct that you had a 30-some-year-old firefighter in your district that was unaware he had cancer until it was too late?
33 years old. Yes, sir.
33,
And
wow.
when he was about, I think, 30 years old, he had some symptoms, and we all know our firefighters these days. They're in the best shapes of their life. They're pretty much world class athletes. Our firefighters are. And this young man, he was having some GI issues. He went to the doctor and was complaining. And the doctor said, "Well, you don't have a family history. You're just too young for this. Just change your diet." And unfortunately, he had more symptoms go on. And a year later, he went in because he had some complications. And when they went in, he found that he had stage 4 colon cancer. And so in the last 2 years of his life, he was a big advocate of telling people to go get screened. And some of the older members in his community that were in his brotherhood went and got screened, and they found out they had stage 1. So this could catch it early for a lot of our firefighter community.
Great bill, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Members, any other questions for Representative? Okay, if there are no further questions, we'll proceed to testimony. The chair calls Joaquin Kreiner. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
My name is Joaquin Kreiner. I am representative of the Louisville Firefighters Association. I'm also a representative of the Texas State Association of Firefighters and myself. And my position on this bill is we are for this. This bill would provide access to firefighters across the state that some municipalities don't provide for. I've been in the fire service all my life. My dad was a fireman for 31 years. I've been a fireman for 20.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry to cut you off. So you registered against?
No, I'm sorry. It's
But,
for.
no, when you registered against, so we just need to make this correction really quickly, and then you can proceed. Okay, you can proceed.
My apologies.
It's okay, thank you.
So as I was saying, I've seen the progression of the fire service from my father, myself, and the laws that the state has passed, that the committee that you share has mirrored those reflections and progression. The example would be the presumptive cancer laws that were passed to cover firefighters. Statistics prove that we need these protective measures. They will help save the firefighters, and it will help save the taxpayers' dollars. So it is a necessary need for those entities that are not necessarily providing cancer screening now. It has helped the Lubbock firefighters. They have caught several of those cancers early on, and those gentlemen were able to come back to work. The cost to backfill someone in that position gets into the hundreds of thousands of dollars to train and get them up to the level of the people that we're losing. So they're irreplaceable. So having that support would be beneficial. As Representative Baumgartner was saying in his district, Wade Cannon, if he'd been tested, it would have been caught early. Instead, this weekend, we're having a benefit in his honor. I leave you with this. Unfortunately, there are municipalities that don't see the need for screening of their firefighters that would help their citizens and their community. We had one municipality officer municipality elected officials say, "Why would we need to pay for a cancer screening? They know the career they chose. We need your help." I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your service. Members, are there any questions? Chair recognizes Vice
I
Chair
just
Stuckey.
wanted to say thank you for your service also, sir. Appreciate you and I guess other family members' service as firefighter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Members, are there any other questions for this witness? Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2957? Okay, if not, Chair recognizes Representative Baumgartner to close on the bill.
I just want to say thanks again for hearing my bill today, Madam Chair and members of the committee, and I pray for a favorable outcome. And with that, I close.
Okay. Thank you, Representative. At this time, the substitute is withdrawn and House Bill 2957 is left pending. The chair lays out House Bill 1159 and recognizes Representative Anderson to explain.
Thank you, Chair Lady Nieve Credo, and members. It's a pleasure to be before you all today and to take up House Bill 1159. This legislation is intended to bring the Public Housing Authority into compliance with existing state laws, as they're a quasi-governmental entity designated by Congress and are 100% taxpayer funded. As such, they should be operating under the same laws as local governments. Texas law was one of the first Texas is one of the first states in the country to eliminate breed-specific legislation, that is, discriminating against a particular breed by local governments over 3 decades ago, supported by experts like the Texas Veterinary Medical Association and the American Kennel Club. This legislation does not impact privately owned housing units in any way and only attempts to clarify the Public Housing Authority must comply with state and local laws regarding pet ownership. This legislation does not stop the public housing authorities from adopting restrictions based on size or weight, and only says that they can't restrict ownership based on a particular breed or what breed someone thinks a dog is, placing them under the same law that other local government entities have been functioning for up to several decades. There are already restrictions on dangerous dogs and dogs of certain weights and sizes. This bill does not change any of those restrictions. It only brings the rules and laws into compliance with already existing local, state, and federal laws that are currently on the books. And this bill was passed unanimously out of County Affairs last session. So members, I think we have some witnesses pro and con, and I would appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, members. Any questions for Representative Anderson? Okay, thank you. We'll proceed to testimony. The chair calls Eric Swafford. And can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I'm Eric Swafford. I'm with Best Friends Animal Society. I'm here today in support of this bill on behalf of Best Friends, our more than 140,000 members, and our over 200 shelter rescues and partners here in the state of Texas alone. The number one reason why owners report surrendering their pets to government-funded shelters is housing barriers. House Bill 1159 will clarify the existing law which seeks to bring public housing authorities into compliance with a law that's been on the books for more than 30 years here in Texas. This only impacts public housing authorities that are 100% taxpayer funded and are defined as local government entities by the United States Congress. Again, in the early 90s, the Texas legislature amended the Health and Safety Code and explicitly stated that breed-specific laws could not be adopted by local governments. Public housing authorities are local government agencies and should be in compliance with that law. This does not prevent them from adopting dangerous dog rules, regulations. It does not prevent them from restricting based on size or weight. It simply brings them into compliance with existing state law. In addition, there is a HUD rule that states that public housing authorities must comply with state and local laws regarding pet ownership. So it not only brings them into compliance with state law and local laws, but with federal rules and regs as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Vice Chair Stuckey.
As a veterinarian, I think it's a good bill. Is it true, Mr. Swafford, that you were a former representative for the Tennessee legislature?
That is, I have to answer in the affirmative. Yes, sir. I served 3 terms in the State House in Tennessee some years ago. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Members, any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Chair calls Michael Roth. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Good morning, Representatives. My name is Michael Roth. I'm the Director of Housing Operations for the Housing Authority of the City of Austin. And I'm also here representing the Texas chapter of the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials, which advocates on behalf of over 350 housing authorities in the state of Texas. I'm here to speak in opposition to Bill 1159. This bill singles out housing authorities, even though many other apartment complexes receive taxpayer support through subsidies and tax credits. It singles out the most vulnerable people in our communities with the intent of finding a few more homes for dogs in exchange for creating fear and real safety risks for seniors and people with disabilities in our communities. Housing authorities are here to provide safe, affordable housing for low-income families, and we do that through a variety of types of housing, everything from high-rise towers to garden-style duplexes, townhomes, bungalows, and a variety of other housing types, many of which are much smaller compared to their similar bedroom sizes in the private rental market. And many of these are not appropriate for large dogs and certain breeds, especially large, powerful dogs. These breeds have ability to cause a lot of damage, and when we've had them on property either as approved assistance animals or as unauthorized pets, we've seen the damage to exterior doors, cabinets, floors, etc. The cost of replacing one exterior door can be over $1,000. Replacement of cabinets and flooring can cost thousands of dollars. And the pet deposits, which we're limited by HUD to charge, that we can charge, do not cover that. Housing authorities are left with paying those bills. But more importantly, these breeds represent a danger to residents and staff. The lease affords all residents the right to peaceful enjoyment of the property. Of the dogs on the Travis County Registered Dangerous Dog List, nearly 70% are one of the breeds currently not allowed on our properties. This bill would allow those dogs on property and take the right to peaceful enjoyment away from residents and legitimately provide safety fears. For our maintenance staff, the residents' apartments are their workplace. Many of these dogs have been bred to protect the home and so understandably view our staff as intruders. This puts our staff at risk when entering to complete a work order or conduct required inspections. We believe it's better policy to allow housing authorities to work with residents to establish pet policies based on the size of their apartments, access to outdoor space, limitations created by elevators or stairwells, and taking into account the safety and well-being of residents and staff who live and work there. We ask that you recognize our obligation to financially manage our properties, to allow for peaceful enjoyment of our properties for residents and staff, and to protect our staff in their workplace. We urge you not to support the passage of this bill. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Members, any questions for this witness? Chair recognizes Vice Chair Stuckey.
Mr. Roth, thank you for being here. Unfortunately, you're picking winners and losers on breeds of dogs instead of when you talk about destruction of the door frames or anything else. As a 40-year veterinarian, I don't have one particular breed that is more dangerous than another one. A lot of it has to do on how they're raised, and so I think we're taking it from a wrong viewpoint. We can't pick good large breeds that you can have and what you call bad ones, because there are no such thing as directly related to the breed of the dog on whether it's going to be a dangerous dog or not. So I thank you for coming, but I have to respectfully disagree.
Chair recognizes Representative Tinderholt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I wasn't sure where I was on this bill, and I'm still trying to figure it out, but I'm a private property owner, advocate. But I do want to share with the members here that the company I have, we actually work on some of these apartments, and one of the serious issues we have is this breed of dog. So it concerns me, and I'm going to call my staff and get the stats, but it's very, I think we're possibly walking down a slippery slope when we don't allow property owners to allow or not allow certain types of things to happen on their property. Again, I can't wait to hear the rest of the testimony, but I felt compelled to kind of talk about that breed and how it affects my company when we work on these properties. But then also, I think as we do this, all of us testifying and doing the bill and listening, we have to remember private property rights. If you own an apartment complex or a home and you rent it, you own it. And you're renting it with certain obligations to the individual to not destroy it and to pay rent on time and to take care of your property and be safe. So I wanted to make those statements. I'm still open-minded, but I felt compelled to kind of share those early on right now as we continue this discussion.
Chair recognizes Vice Chair Stuckey.
And again, I agree on the, they need protection and deposits for those kind of things. But unfortunately, even if they have picked out one breed, it's many times how they raise that animal and whether it's dangerous or not. And they can pick another breed and do the same thing. So I don't think we can pick and choose breeds. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Jones.
I'm sort of torn on this bill. I grew up with a grandfather who loved dogs. He loved big dogs. And my mother is a letter carrier, or she was before she retired, so she had her fair share of encounters with dogs. And so I would hear stories from her, but she had the little mace they give them at the post office where if it gets in your eyes, you can't see. So that was a way to stop the dogs. But I can remember going to my grandparents, and I don't know if dogs can sniff and tell if you're afraid of them or not. I just don't know. But I know my grandfather's dog, I would have to scream. We didn't have intercoms back then. But I'd have to scream and ask somebody to come get me to take me into the house. And I remember how terrified I was. And then my grandfather's dog, turns out my grandfather loved his dogs more than he loved my grandmother, but because the dog, two separate dogs of his attacked my grandmother, his wife. So I grew up terrified of dogs. Well, now I'm bigger, right? So I'm not so afraid of dogs like I used to be when I was younger. But I am concerned for people who are not like animal people. Some people are not animal people. Some people are terrified of animals. And even people with a dog on a leash, they're afraid of, right? And so I'm torn, and I guess my question is, are there other, I guess I'd have to ask this probably wouldn't be a question for you, but I guess I'd have to ask the bill's author if there are other entities. I mean, they're I guess I've only identified housing authorities, and that's poor people, right? Tax credits. I mean, I'd be curious to know if housing authorities are the only authorities that receive 100% funding, and then do housing authorities only get 100% funding? But I just struggle with people who are now like I used to be when I was a kid, who saw her grandmother get attacked twice by two separate dogs, and who literally had a big dog who back at that time was almost bigger than me, just growling and having to be held. So for people who love animals, they can be animal whisperers. But for people who are afraid of animals, you probably don't have like security. And I would imagine that if you're if you're older, you probably will be less able to defend yourself if a dog comes. So I struggle, right? Because I want for people to be able to have their pets. I have plenty of friends who have, what do you call it, support dogs. Like they can't do stuff without their dogs. And they're not all small. So I don't know where I am on this bill, but I do know that there are people who are afraid of dogs. They don't care the breed. And by the way, my grandfather liked German Shepherds and Dobermans are the dogs that attacked my grandmother, and that I was terrified of.
Thank you for your testimony.
May I respond?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Was that a-
First of all, assistance animals, there is no restriction on breeds for assistance animals. So a person with a disability with the need for an assistance animal would not be impacted by any of our policies. The fear is a very real thing. And when you have elderly people who struggle with walking, to your point, the dog may or may not be a dangerous dog, but if the fear is still real and if that's impacting their ability to peacefully enjoy the property, we have issues. And if that's causing them to become isolated, that's a challenge for our residents. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Vice Chair Stuckey.
And again, I'm just going to say, if some large breeds that are over 100 pounds are allowable and some are not, we're picking and choosing winners and losers. I'm sure Jolanda and many others that were scared, the bigger the dog, the more they were scared most of the time. So we can't pick and choose a breed. They don't just are necessarily scared because of one breed or the other. It may be the size of the dog. And after 40 years, again, some of those that are on these lists are some of the most gentle, wonderful dogs I've had in my practice generation after generation. And then there's some that were raised to keep people away for a reason. They were doing illegal activity. And unfortunately, those bigger breeds, some of them get that reputation because they're the ones that can keep authorities away from you long enough to flush it down to commode or whatever. So thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions?
I've got one question. Maybe I should ask you, Vice Chair Stuckey, because you're a vet, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Thank you for your testimony.
So with the breeds, so this law, I'm sorry, is this not on? The bill doesn't discriminate based on weight, just breed, is that it? So you can have a 100-pound, is that a Great Dane? I think when they stand up, they're taller than me. Is a Great Dane's that big old dog. Yeah, when they stand up, they're taller than me. So, oh yeah, that's big too. But so at the Housing Authority, you can have a Mastiff and not something else.
Right.
I'm struggling with that as
And
well.
that's the issue, again, and I don't want to sit here and debate this for a long time, but I'd be glad to offline to sit and talk with all of you, but it's not specific breed that one's meaner than the others, it's how they're raised and the numbers that are out there to adopt. There's some breeds that have, the shelters are way higher in number than others, and many of those are not dangerous, but they're big dogs, and they're eliminated from this opportunity.
Thank you. Chair calls Randy Turner. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
My name is Randy Turner. I'm here as an individual, and I'm testifying on the bill. Madam Chair, members, I've been practicing animal law for over 35 years. That's all I do. I represent rescue groups, humane societies, wildlife sanctuaries. I represent people with service and emotional support animals. I teach animal law to animal control officers, lawyers, law students. I've been at the Texas Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners. This is all I do. There are two of us in Texas who our practices are limited exclusively to animal law. I'm a founding member and the former chair of the animal law section of the State Bar of Texas. I'm here because this bill doesn't do what you think it's going to do. If this bill passes this legislature and it's signed into law, I'm here to tell you, housing authorities can discriminate. They can prohibit whatever breeds they want. They can say, we don't allow these 10 animals, and that's it. And that's if this bill passes. Let me explain. The Texas Dangerous Dog Law says that if a dog bites someone or makes an unprovoked act, it can be deemed dangerous by a city. This is the Texas Health and Safety Code. It can be deemed dangerous. Now, under the statute, when an animal is deemed dangerous, the statute requires the owner to do certain things, buy $100,000 of liability insurance, keep the dog in an enclosure, register the dog with the city. And then the statute says, and cities can adopt whatever other restrictions they want to. Okay, so what the cities have done, what a lot of cities have done, is there are ordinances that say, okay, if a dog's deemed dangerous, not only does it have to do those things that the state requires by the statute, our city requires fluorescent orange collars. Dangerous dog signs need to be put up. Things like that. What this bill says is housing authorities are going to have to comply with those restrictions that the cities have enacted. So what you're going to have is, if this passes and a dog is deemed dangerous, now the housing authority is in the business of making sure that dogs are wearing fluorescent orange collars. The housing authority is going to have to put up dangerous dog signs. I'm just telling you that the discussion has been, should we ban specific dogs or not? This bill doesn't do that. If you wanted to do that, you would change the wording, because right now the bill says housing authority must comply with all applicable county and municipal restrictions on dangerous dogs. Those restrictions are orange collar, dangerous dog signs, et cetera. This bill needs to, if you want to prevent breed-specific legislation, you need to say housing authorities may not adopt ownership policies or restrictions that are specific to one breed or several breeds. Then there's no question. I'm telling you, if this law passes, and by the way, I've handled more dangerous dog cases, as far as I know, than any other lawyer in Texas, except for a guy in Arlington, and he's done more than I have, and he and I have both talked extensively about this bill. It doesn't do what everybody thinks it does. It's not going to. If this bill passes, housing authorities can ban all the breeds they want. And there's a simple fix. You cross out this line, you add that line.
Chair recognizes Vice Chair Stuckey.
Again, they can restrict on weight and size. That's not, I don't think, the issue
Correct.
here. The issue is whether they restrict which breed is in and which breed is out. And that's the issue I have with it, is that you can't define a breed based on it being dangerous or not.
Yes, sir. But if this bill passes, they'll be able to restrict whatever breeds they want. Yeah.
Members, any other questions for this witness? Okay, thank you
Thank
for your
you.
testimony. Chair calls Nancy Lange. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
My name's Nancy Lang. Good morning. I am a resident of Chalmers Apartments in downtown Austin, one of the public housing properties managed by the Housing Authority of the City of Austin. I am here to speak in opposition to House Bill 1159. This bill would impose unreasonable restrictions on the pet ownership policies of public housing authorities in Texas. If passed into law, 1159 would put residents like me at unnecessary risk of attack from dangerous dogs. I'd like to share my personal story about a dog attack. Years ago, I was taking the elevator down from my apartment at Chalmers. We stopped at another floor where a resident got on the elevator with his pet, a mixed breed pit bull. In an instant and without warning, the dog became violently aggressive. Angrily snarling, he attacked me, trying to rip into my face and my neck. I have never been more terrified in my life. The pet owner was just barely able to restrain the animal by using both hands to yank on the collar and pull him off of me and out of the elevator. Even then, I had deep scratches on my arms and face. Those injuries were nothing compared to the terror I felt. Unfortunately, that fear persists today. Every time I am confronted by large dogs and owners that may not be able to restrain them, I am not alone in this experience. I am grateful that the Housing Authority has been proactive in listening to resident concerns. We have overwhelmingly voted to limit the size of and breeds of animals in our communities. It is unfair for state lawmakers to take away our rights. We have already voted on our own pet policies. Thank you for your time, and please vote against House Bill 1159.
Thank you, members. Any questions for this witness? Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chair calls Casey Spain. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
My name is Casey Spain, and I am here to speak in favor of House Bill 1159. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as an Austin resident. I have spent the last 9 years working in government animal shelters, supporting community members, and frequently living in government housing or experiencing homelessness. One of the moments that sticks in my mind is a young boy and his mother who came into the animal shelter intake lobby sobbing, their confused dog on a leash. They were being forced to give up their pet due to having to move into government housing where their sweet, blocky-headed dog was not allowed. This young boy at just 6 years old was having to understand the confusion of leaving his home and losing his best friend in the same week. I have worked with countless unhoused people who would rather continue to live on the street with their dogs than move into government housing where their dog was not allowed and then be without their best friend. I've heard the testimony of people who have fear from big dogs, but I want to reiterate that this bill does not affect size or weight restrictions. It does, however, affect good dogs that are being punished by the way that they look. That greatly affects the animals in our already overcrowded animal shelters in Texas.
Thank you, members. Chair recognizes Vice Chair Stuckey.
Nancy, this is very similar to during Hurricane Harvey when the emergency people had to move people out and they said you cannot bring your animals with you, and they stayed with their animals and died. Many more died, and they changed that rule after that to say you bring your pets with you. It goes back to this whole bill is about you can't pick and choose which breed is dangerous and which is not. Many times it's based on how it was raised and other factors. And if, Nancy, if you guys wanted to restrict your weight, that can be done. But to restrict one breed against another is still not fair. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Okay, thank you for your testimony. Chair recognizes Mary Apostolou. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
My name is Mary Apostolou. Good morning. I am a resident commissioner of the Housing Authority of the City of Austin. I'm here to oppose House Bill 1159, which seeks to impose unreasonable restrictions on the pet policies of public housing authorities in Texas. I think it is important for you to realize that the nature of public housing. My neighbors in public housing are often the most vulnerable people in our community: seniors, persons with disabilities, and low-income families with young children. We are in public housing because we have needs and few options. We have serious concerns about the emotional and financial toll this bill could have on low-income persons. Dog attacks are particularly brutal events. The average cost of a hospital stay due to a dog bite, depending on the severity and the type of injuries, is around $23,680. That's more than what a resident of public housing could afford. Medical costs are only part of the recovery process. Many dog bite victims also experience long-term psychological trauma from their injuries. I've heard some supporters of this bill argue that responsible pet owners would be willing to train their pets not to be aggressive or dangerous. That is an unsound argument. The cost of dog training ranges from $1,700 to $2,500 in Austin. This is prohibitive and inaccessible to pet owners who need help for rent and living expenses. Frankly, much of this bill is a problem under the mess of Texas animal liability laws. Under Texas First Bite standard, a pet owner is liable for an injury caused by their pet only if they knew or should have known that the pet was likely to cause injury. That might be okay applied to a small pet like a Chihuahua, but it is irresponsible when dealing with a pit bull or Rottweiler whose powerful jaws can apply more than 300 pounds of pressure, enough to snap a bone in a single bite. Presuming a potentially dangerous animal is safe until they prove otherwise is dangerously foolish when the potential damage they could impose could be devastating or fatal.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for this witness? Okay, thank you. Chair calls Veronica Castillo Perez. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Yes, good morning, House Committee members. My name is Veronica Castillo Perez. I'm a resident of Chalmers, one of the public housing properties managed by the Housing Authority of the City of Austin. I'm also the president of our Residents Council. I'm also the vice president of the Citywide Advisory Board. I'm here to speak in opposition to House Bill 1159, which would impose dangerous pet policies on public housing communities across the state.
Okay, ma'am, so you registered, are you testifying on behalf of the Housing Authority of the City of Austin? Because you mentioned 3 different organizations. So I want to
No,
make sure that
I'm a
we're-
resident of Chalmers, which is a property of the Housing Authority. I'm also the president of our Residents Council.
So who
and
are you
I'm-
testifying on behalf of all those organizations?
Well, yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's all in,
Okay, all right, thank you. You can proceed.
the Residents Council of the one piece of property, and then there's the Citywide Advisory Board.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm here to, in opposition of this bill, which would impose dangerous pet policies of public housing communities across the state that would risk the safety and security of residents like myself. As HACA residents, we should have the freedom to decide the living arrangements for our communities. The state mandate has limited authority, and the state provides no funding to support public housing. Residents of HACA public housing were involved in establishing pet policies at all the properties. The residents are overwhelmingly supported setting limits on the number of pets, and we endorse setting the pet's weight limit at no more than 30 pounds. We were clear as to why we did not want potentially dangerous animals close to our families and guests. We were concerned about the noise, the sanitation problems, and just the general fears of having such pet around. On a very personal level, I moved to Austin from Marble Falls housing, public housing, where unleashed dogs were the reason I had to leave that area, because it escalated so much that the police told me they could not guarantee my safety. Please vote no on House Bill 1159.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for this witness? Okay, thank you. Chair calls Tiffany Middleton. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Good morning. Thank you all for your time and attention. My name is Tiffany Middleton, and I am a social worker with the Housing Authority of the City of Austin, and I'm a resident protection project manager. I do appreciate you all's time and energy with this bill, but I am in opposition to House Bill 1159. House Bill 1159 is a blanket provision to allow dangerous dogs in our public housing developments and poses a significant risk to the safety and security of some of Texas' most vulnerable families, families I serve every day. And I've seen some of the stories and some of the devastation. So it's not some statistic that I'm making up. It's real experiences that we've had. According to the American Veterinary Medical Association, 4.5 million people in the United States are bitten by dogs each year. More than 800,000 receive medical attention for dog bites, and at least half of them being children. Texas is one of the top states in the country in terms of the number of dog bites and injuries and deaths caused each year. The fact is that there is no need for the state to insert itself in setting the policies for pet ownership in public housing, especially when the state does not provide a penny of funding for housing operations. Housing authorities are already required by the Code of Federal Regulations and by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to establish pet policies in consultation with their tenants. HACA did just that. Our residents overwhelmingly supported a limit on the number, the size and weight, and the type of pets that would be allowed in their apartment communities. Many are concerned not just for their safety, but for the home care service providers they rely upon, like people serving them from Meals on Wheels, home health care, and medication deliveries. We have heard that many of these providers would be discouraged from coming to the property where they would be at risk of injury from dangerous animals. The Housing Authority establishes policies that help to ensure the safety and well-being of its tenants.
Thank you.
Policies that...
The timer just went off.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for this witness? Chair recognizes Vice Chair Stein.
Thank you for being here, and I agree with you on number, size, and weight. That part is understandable. The breed part, again, is the issue. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Jones.
You said you see, can just give me an example of something you've seen.
A cancer patient has to get up and go out and walk for her mental health and her physical health. A dog that everybody knows, runs out of the unit, attacks her. We don't know if the dog was attacking her to be mean or if it was playing. However, with her condition, she was knocked down. This was a pit bull. It scratched her up on her arms, on her legs. The lady was fighting for her life. I can't help. When the dog finally did get off of her, she still had to go to the hospital. She still had to incur those bills. That, again, created a deficit in her resources because, again, she's low income. She lived 6 more months after that, but her quality of life was greatly diminished because she was no longer able to confidently go outside and walk, something that was helping her manage through this life situation that she had. And so what I do know is a little Chihuahua, she probably could have kicked off. She could not fight off a big dog like that pit bull. And I mean, while we know that maybe you can't pick and choose which dog is dangerous, but what we can say is little dogs, you can probably manage a little better. And there's no reports that say they've killed anybody. But there are reports that say Rottweilers and
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Chair recognizes Vice Chair
Just
Stein.
real quick, again, I agree with the weight part and the numbers. And in that case, you had a very dangerous dog, and that's too bad, because those do need to be controlled. But I don't think it's breed specific every time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Chair calls Mayra Rubalcaba. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Good morning, Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Mayra Rubalcaba, and I'm a senior community health worker for the Housing Authority of the City of Austin, also known as HACA. I am also a resident of the public housing. I'm here to speak in opposition to the House Bill 1159, which would impose dangerous pet policies on public housing communities across the state. In doing so, the bill makes some flawed assumptions about the reasonable process public housing authorities use in setting pet rules on their properties. It may be believed that housing authorities and dangerously creating policies for pets. The truth is that most housing authorities determine tenant policies for their communities only after consulting with the residents. For example, residents helped establish the pet policies at all of the HACA properties. They overwhelmingly supported setting limits, the number of pets, and endorsed the setting the pet weights limit no more than 30 pounds. We were clear as to why we supported these policies. We did not want potentially dangerous animals close to our families and guests. We're concerned about the noise, the sanitation problems, and just the general fears having such pets would cause. Some have posed a second myth by defining these pets as assistant animals that would be separated from their owners. While I certainly agree that pets can only provide owners comfort, they are not assistant animals. An assistance animal is prescribed by a medical professional to perform tasks or emotionally support a person with a disability, not as a pet. The Fair Housing Act and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development rules require public housing providers to accommodate an assistance animal when essential to persons experiencing physical or mental disability. Pet policy restrictions do not apply. As a public housing authority, we have responsibility to keep the properties we manage safe for renters and visitors. We must be sure we are making the right judgment to balance the needs of the entire community for the benefits of everyone.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, are there any questions for this witness? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Leilani Lim Villegas. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Good morning, committee members. My name is Leilani Lim Villegas, and I serve as a Senior Director of Community Development for the Housing Authority of the City of Austin. I oversee the resident services and community partnerships across our 19 public housing properties, and I come today to testify against House Bill 1159. In order to uplift our families from poverty, HACA collaborates with many local nonprofits to provide essential resident services. 28% of HACA residents are elderly and disabled, and community partners such as Meals on Wheels, Family Elder Care, and Central Texas Food Bank provide door-to-door meal delivery services because the majority of our senior citizens do not own a vehicle, and many are dependent on wheelchairs and walkers. We have received several complaints expressing fear and concerns from our community partners, stating that they have experienced aggressive behavior from large dogs while delivering meals to our residents. Children represent 46%, which is nearly half of our resident population. And HACA has on-site Boys and Girls Clubs and communities and schools programs. These youth community partners provide high-quality after-school care. As part of their youth education, mental health, and leadership development programs, the Boys and Girls Clubs promote outdoor activities for our children. There were concerns shared by our community partners that when a large dog, even on a leash, is near the playground, children often do not want to go outside due to the fear. Children prefer not to engage in outdoor physical activities with other students, which is vital to their mental health progress. HACA conducted a survey about pet policies, and the current pet policies were in consultation with our residents and resident leaders. Voted by fellow neighbors, we are joined by Mary Apostolo, who you just heard, and she represents the voice of over 20,000 residents living in public housing and Section 8. The results of the pet policy were very clear. The resident wanted to limit the number of pets, and they strongly supported the size, weight, and breed restrictions. If this bill is passed, the safety of our communities and effectiveness of our family self-sufficiency programs are being compromised. People under distress cannot reach their full potential in an unsafe environment. For these reasons, we ask that you vote against House Bill 1159. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for this witness? Chair recognizes Vice Chair.
I just want to make another comment. We're talking again about weight and size, and I understand and fully understand what you're talking about, but we need to take the breed part out because it doesn't correlate with bad or good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Chair recognizes Bob Kafka. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Thank you. I think, can you, yeah, that's okay. My name's Bob Kafka. I'm an organizer with Adaptive Texas. We're a statewide disability rights group. Our opposition is twofold. One is you have to ask, and I think one of the members did, why is this not statewide, public and private, only focused on the public entity? To be honest, we know the answer to that. The Texas Apartment Association, Texas Housing would probably be in opposition, so they picked on the public housing. And then my second point is to reiterate the resident councils. Again, the resident councils are all over the city. There's a statewide, a citywide, and a statewide, each public housing. And local control is very important. Texans hate to have the federal government telling them what to do, and again, the state making a blanket. And again, our group, has been sort of what would happen if it was public and private, would we be for or against, but we didn't get into that discussion. So we really think that you should be opposed to this bill and rely on local control, the resident council. And I just want to make it particular for the Public Housing Authority here in Austin, which has been one of the most responsive groups in the state. I can't speak for other ones in the city, in the state, but this Residents Council and their staff are very receptive to, resident input, which is very dear to our group. So we're in opposition.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for this witness? Okay, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1159? Not. Chair recognizes Representative Anderson to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and we very much appreciate the testimony, very passionate testimony. But what we need to emphasize is that what this bill does, it does not affect the public housing authorities having policies that ban dogs by weight, size, or numbers, and does not signify or single out public housing. The public housing authorities are taxpayer-funded, government-created entities, and they need to be required and obligated to make sure that they're operating in a proper, efficient, and lawful manner. These issues were established a number of years ago, that you cannot single out a particular breed and individually as a dangerous dog. The public housing authorities can and do write their own policy and regulations on dangerous dogs, what they are, and this bill does not affect that. This simply says that you cannot discriminate against a single breed predicated on what somebody thinks that breed might do or has done. And any dangerous dogs definitely need to be controlled. There's no doubt about that. I'm also a veterinarian of 36 years and have dealt with many, many different breeds. And individually, I'd rather treat pit bulls all day long than some of the other breeds because they're a great family pet. And they can be abused, certainly have been, and historically they have the reputation of bad dogs because they've been abused, and it's not necessarily true that it's just that breed. So the training and the way these animals have been treated comes into play there, but like I say, I just want to reemphasize that this bill does not change the way the public housing authorities write regulations and policies dealing with the height, weight, size, or number of dogs, or if it's a dangerous dog, if they declare that. And so, members, I would appreciate your favorable consideration as we go forward with this bill, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Chair recognizes Vice Chair Stuckey.
So you think the freshmen or the other representatives are going to win today in the Aggie game?
Well, I think the senior folks will, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Members, any other questions? Chair recognizes Representative Jones.
Hey, Doc, I've got a couple of questions. One, where in the language of 1159 does it say you can't restrict this particular breed? I'm just trying to find that language.
Well, what we're doing is saying that you can't restrict a particular breed. In other words, what the bill would do would say that you cannot take any particular breed to declare as a dangerous animal or an animal that can't be in the housing.
Oh, okay. And then question: why didn't you include like apartment associations?
These are government funded. The public housing authorities are government funded, 100% taxpayer funded, and they are, we just make sure they are obligated to follow the current law that was established several decades ago.
So, but I know that because I used to be a chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee when I was on City Council, so I know that there are tax credit deals where they get money from HUD,
Yes.
and sometimes from TDHCA, which is a state agency. So how come you didn't include those?
Any public housing authorities with federal funding and state funding are the ones that we're approaching in this legislation to make sure that they're obligating, that they're following the current law. But the private, like private property, they're not included in this.
So I've taken like private apartments out. I'm talking about like the tax credit deals where you got to go to your city council or your state rep and get them to write you a letter so you can get tax credit money, which either comes from HUD or it comes through TDHCA at the state. How come you didn't include those? Because they do receive public money.
Well, we might have to look at that and see if we can include those in here.
All right, because I'll say it again, they do receive public money. Tax credit deals do.
Okay.
And-
Yeah, we may have to look at that.
I'm happy to, we can talk offline. We don't have to talk right
You
now.
bet, you bet. The
All right,
main
thank
thing is
you.
you want to make sure they're abiding the current law. So,
All right, thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Okay.
thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. House Bill 1159 will be left pending at this time. The chair lays out House Bill 899 and recognizes Chairman Walla to explain.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Niave Criado and members. Appreciate the opportunity to lay out this bill, House Bill 89, which would allow large counties with a population of more than 3.3 million, which includes Harris County, to create a noise regulation for unincorporated Harris County. I want to recognize Mr. Richard Cantu, who's also the Executive Director of the East Aldie Management District. He's been the director for a long time and worked with the management districts in my district very often. And of all the complaints that we get about quality of life, we spend a lot of dollars in our community with contract deputies. We have 13 contract deputies, Harris County deputies that patrol the area. We put up street lights. We've connected people with that had no sewer and water to sewer and water connections. We offered grants through the management district to local communities and nonprofits, particularly the high school. Done a lot of good work with the management district, but one of the number one complaints that the management district and our office gets is about the loud noise from homes that are, in essence, throwing big, large parties. And folks, and look, let me back up. I know that we in the legislature, we're always trying to be problem solvers. And the constituents that I represent that live in unincorporated Harris County, of which are 2.2 million people, and I know y'all will hear that very often in this committee about Harris County and the unincorporated part of the county. Their only redress was to go to the Commissioner's Court. Well, Commissioner's Court doesn't not have the ability to regulate noise. And so what we've tried to do over this last, I think I've filed a version of this bill every sessions that I've served. It's passed a few times. It's gotten over to the Senate. It hasn't, reached over the line on the Senate side. We want to continue to work with our Senate partners on this, but it's been a constant battle with the emails, the phone calls, the text messages I get from civic club presidents and civic leaders in my community that complain about the noise. And so what we've tried to do in this bill has been probably 3 to 4 or 5 pages in the past. We've got it down to 1 page, members, Chairwoman. 1 page that just allows the Harris County, counties of over 3.3 million, the ability, and any county that reaches that threshold would have this ability as well, to regulate noise in their counties so that we can minimize this issue. It's a quality of life issue. Those constituents, they go to the county, they can't do that, so they come to me to try to help them solve a problem for them. And for many, this might not be important, but it's important to my constituents. And so they're coming to me to have them come to me to fight for them. And so we're trying to find the tools for them to be able to regulate this issue in our communities, our neighbors, because look, I love to have a good time, but at the same time, you got to be respectful of your neighbors. And this has been an issue, an ongoing issue in our communities. And so we just want to give the tools to our county commissioners court to be able to regulate this. And then for the record, there is a Class C misdemeanor penalty on that if you violate that. We'll leave it up to the county to figure out how they want to regulate that. We don't want to be proscriptive on that. We just want to allow them the ability. It is a permissive, so it's a may. It's not a shall. And so with that, members, I know there's probably Richard has traveled from Houston to testify, and so I know he's probably filled out a witness affirmation form to testify. I know he's probably going to want to speak, but in his perspective, but just from my perspective, I've come to this committee probably when Chairman Coleman was here. He knew how passionate I was about it, because this is something that we get tons of calls on in the office, and my constituents need some relief. So with that, glad to answer any questions, and would reserve the right to close.
Chair recognizes.
Ask to reserve the right to close.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Jones.
I think it should be in the city, so I support it. I just had some people put in an event center and a alcohol serving place right behind my house, and they make a lot of noise, and they have strobe lights. So, I mean, I wouldn't oppose a friendly amendment that makes it like that for everyone.
Well,
And
so
why did you just, because it's just in the ETJ, right?
it,
In those
I
counties?
guess by definition, yes. It's only for the
Unincorporated
This bill
area.
only applies to folks that live in unincorporated Harris County because, as former council member, as you know, the City of Houston can pass an ordinance, and they've had this on the books for years.
They enforce it.
That's another committee, probably Urban Affairs, but they have the ability to do that. The counties can only do what the Texas legislature allows them to do or not do. So what we're trying to do here is just allow them the ability to do it. It doesn't mandate they have the ability. It just says, hey, if you want to do it, you can do it, but only in unincorporated Harris County, because that's where the complaints, but believe me, I'm aware of the City of Houston issues, but probably more than half my district is unincorporated.
Okay.
That's where it comes from.
Chair recognizes Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome, Representative Wally,
Thank you.
my brother. So this bill literally applies to my house and the entire district I represent is unincorporated area of Harris County. So I have a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
I'll let you know I am definitely supportive of the concept. We have these issues in the area I live in. First question is, I'm not a lawyer, so I do not know what the penalties for a Class C misdemeanor are. So first, what kind of weight does that carry? What's like the
It's a fine.
maximum, minimum? It's a fine.
Yes.
So it's a civil penalty. You can get fined.
I mean, you would have to, like, not show up. Like, if you get ticketed for Class C misdemeanor, you'll probably go to JP court. I don't practice criminal law, but that's, as I understand Class C misdemeanors, go to municipal court, JP courts. Those are your courts of jurisdiction for most of those penalties.
Okay, second question. In an area so I've been living there for 30 years and the concept's still foreign to me. We have no zoning, right? How do
Correct.
we define a residential area if there's no zoning? Is there a way to actually define that?
I mean, you could, but
this particularly says residential area, and we got no zoning. We have nothing defined as a residential area.
I think by definition, if you wanted to put a definition regarding residential community or subdivision open to that, but I think we would leave it up to the county to make that determination. Look, City of Houston,
I'm not trying to give you a hard time,
is
honestly.
very laissez-faire about their development, right? So we do not know, there's no distinction sometimes between where the city ends and where their county unincorporated begins, other than maybe a street and who you pay your taxes to, right? So I
Well,
would
that's
leave
fair.
leave it up to the county.
My address is Houston, Texas. So I actually live in Houston, Texas, but it's unincorporated, so I'm not in the city. I don't get to vote.
I have the same, I live in unincorporated
Fair
area
enough.
myself.
And so, but there's nothing in here about how to define these noise. It just says level of noise emanating, so they could do that by decibels, time of day, like that sort of thing. You're cool before 10 p.m.
We'd leave it up to the county, because in the past, as I mentioned in my initial layout, this bill was very prescriptive. It was probably 4 or 5, 6 pages. It detailed day,
All that
night,
kind of stuff.
all of that.
Yeah.
And so over time, and you will experience this when you get here, when you have more experience, that over time, you try to minimize the complexity of bills so that you allow your municipalities, in this case, the county, flexibility in how they would create their regime. Because the more prescriptive you get, then, it waters down the,
I feel you.
yeah.
So enforcement will be, for my area, for our areas, will be sheriffs and
The-
constables.
The sheriffs and constables. So let me ask.
And at the risk of opening a can of worms, does this apply to stuff like fireworks displays and, because,
This doesn't contemplate fireworks displays at all. This is more noise coming from homes. Now, if
from a
it-
house. So this is a residence, only a residence.
we're leaving it up to the county.
No, the language says residence.
I know that. We're leaving it up to the county on how they want to interpret that.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Vice Chair Stuckey.
Thank you for your questions, Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Representative. I guess the only question I really have is, are there other counties that have 3.3 million that would be affected by this, or could be affected, because it's a
Could
May?
be.
It's a
Yeah, it's a May, so
Yeah,
it-
it could be.
I know Denton or Collin or
Yeah.
Dallas.
We're not big enough.
Probably
Yeah,
they'd be right close.
Dallas,
But
maybe Tarrant.
probably Dallas, but that would be probably years from now.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions for Chairman Wally? Okay. Thank you. We'll proceed with testimony.
Thank you.
Chair calls Richard Cantu. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Madam Chair, members, glad to be with you. My name is Richard Cantu. I am president of the Harris County Board of Education, but I'm here in my capacity today as executive director of the East Aldine Management District. Come in support of Representative Wally's House Bill 899 to give Harris County, in our case, Harris County, the ability to develop and put in place a noise ordinance would be an important tool for our sheriff deputies to address this very important quality of life issue that we have in Harris County, in East Aldine District in particular. It's the number one call to the sheriff's non-emergency number, especially on the weekends. As our representative said, it's usually house parties that kind of get out of control, and folks maybe are used to turning up the music to a level when they're out on the ranch and on the rancho, but they forget they're living in a subdivision now, and the deputies just haven't been able to get the support from the DA's office to take charges. And this bill would empower our commissioners court to set up an ordinance to help us deal with this quality of life issue in our community.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for this witness? Chair recognizes Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Cantu. Do you know if this bill has support from the sheriffs and the constables? Are they supportive?
I don't know that Sheriff Gonzalez in Harris County has personally supported, but my team, we have the largest contract with the Sheriff's Department in Harris County. It's actually, we've added some, we're actually up to 21 deputies now. We, literally a small police force in the 20 square miles we have in East Aldine. And so my commander that works on our contract, Lieutenant Santos, would have been here if he hadn't had interviews to do. He was hiring some additional deputies, but they are very supportive of this, and they
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 899? Chair recognizes Chairman Wally to close.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I think we've had a good, exhaustive discussion. I close.
Thank you. House Bill 899 will be left pending at this
Thank you.
time. Chair lays out House Bill 1583, and Representative Orr offers a committee substitute. Chair recognizes Chairman Burrows to explain.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. In 1997, Terry County Hospital District entered into a settlement of a case filed under the Voting Rights Act regarding the way directors of the district are elected. Under the terms of that settlement agreement, directors are elected through a cumulative voting process. The district has been using this process for its directors director elections since May of 1997, but the district's enabling legislation was never amended to reflect that. This bill will revise the enabling legislation to reflect the cumulative voting process that the district has been using since the May 1997 settlement agreement. The main reason for making this change is to avoid confusion going forward in the future. Additionally, the bill revises the enabling legislation provisions regarding notice of elections and applications to be on the ballot so that the district will follow the standard process of the Texas Elections Code for these items. I provided a committee sub that simply makes this identical to the companion of SB 1116 in the Senate. With that, Madam Chair, I appreciate you allowing me to lay this bill out today and be happy to answer any questions. There may be somebody here for more technical questions if you have them.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for the chairman? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll proceed with testimony. Chair calls Jennifer Clayman. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
My name is Jennifer Clayman. I'm the attorney for Terry Memorial Hospital District. I'm here for the bill, and I'm basically here to answer any questions. I think the representative explained the issue very well.
Members, any questions? Okay. Thank you for your testimony.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1583? Okay, Chair recognizes Chairman Burrows to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for your favorable consideration. With that, I'll close.
Thank you. At this time, the substitute is withdrawn and House Bill 1583 is left pending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chair lays out House Bill 995. Representative Rosenthal offers a committee substitute, and the chair recognizes Representative Munoz to explain.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for the opportunity to present House Bill 995. It's regarding illness or injury leave. Madam Chair and members, House Bill 995 would require the Sheriff's Office Civil Service to allow an officer injured in the line of duty to be allowed leave for up to a year to recover from their injury and come back to duty. Municipalities with a population of 10,000 or more may establish civil service for their police and fire departments. Under this system, an officer injured in the line of duty is allowed leave for up to a year to recover from their injury and come back to duty. Currently, a county with a population of 500,000 or more may establish a sheriff's office civil service for the law enforcement personnel. Under this version of civil service, an officer is not guaranteed any time be given for them to recover from their injuries unless the Civil Service Commission enacts it. We do have some witnesses here, individuals from, I think, Dallas County or Harris County that can give you a particular examples that they experienced and that would be in support of the legislation. I would be available for any questions or concerns from any members of the committee that I could address. And with that, Madam Chair, I reserve my right to close.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Members, any questions for Representative? Okay, thank you. We'll proceed with testimony. Chair calls Christopher Dyer. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Madam Chair, honorable members, I'm Christopher Dyer. I'm the president of the Dallas County Sheriff's Association, and I'm here today to speak for my association and for myself in favor of House Bill 995. I am currently a senior sergeant with the Dallas County Sheriff's Department. I've been there for over 36 years, and I'm assigned to the Patrol Traffic Division. In the time that I've been there, I just kind of like to share a little bit of my experience. At one time, I had a deputy, one of our members. He was a field training officer. He was a TCOL instructor, part of our tactical team. And during training in the academy, he was instructing on defensive tactics. During that training, he was injured. He tore his rotator cuff. Going through the civil service system, going through the workman's comp system, all of the delay caused him to be out longer than 12 weeks. Because of that, he was terminated. Okay. Goes to civil service, he gets his job back. Doesn't make it back, they gave him a month to recover. He doesn't make it back, he was terminated again. Goes back to civil service. In the civil service hearing, the testimony of the assistant chief deputy, when he was being asked the question, Chief, what would happen if one of the deputies was shot in the line of duty? And the chief's response was, Well, after 12 weeks, they're subject to be terminated. So this bill seeks to remedy a disparity between municipal civil service and county civil service. It allows a county law enforcement officer the same amount of time to recover, to retain his job, to recover as a municipal law enforcement officer. We're asked, well, won't this be too expensive? Based on what I've been told by my own budget directors, it costs $100,000 and at least 1 year to replace that employee. All we're asking is for a few more months to allow them to recover and retain their job. During the time that my employee, my member, was out, he wasn't getting paid. We had to assist him because he's going to lose his house because he couldn't make his mortgage payments. He had to pay his part of the county insurance, his medical insurance. A municipal officer wouldn't have had to deal with that. That's why we're asking today for your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Are there any questions for this witness? Okay, thank you for your testimony. Chair calls David Batten, or Baton. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Madam Chair, my name is David Batten. I'm General Counsel for the Harris County Deputies Organization. I'm speaking on behalf of the organization today. And we're asking, we're supporting this bill. A number of instances have happened, especially in Harris County, is that we have a large number of employees that are employed by the jail. In that, they are not given the same opportunities as an officer injured in the street. For example, I have one lady that was attempted to be raped. She defended herself, broke her wrist in that process, and was off for a period of more than 12 weeks while she had pins in her arm. And after that period of time, she was just released because she could no longer come in and function while those pins were in her arm. She was essentially had to be terminated. We have a number of other employees that that's happened to that we're talking about on-the-job injuries. This would equalize what happens to municipal employees for a number of years. And it would provide that the sheriff's office itself more control instead of having to shove everybody over to workers' comp, which becomes a quagmire. The sheriff's department and civil service could identify these employees and provide different types of evidence and monitor the controls much better than they have. The bill would be better to recruit people and keep them employed, knowing that, especially in the detention division, that if they were injured, the sheriff's department would look forward to them not be thrown off into workers' comp. And so we'd ask support if you have any other questions.
Thank you, members. Are there any questions for this witness? Okay. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chair calls Kevin Lawrence. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Madam Chair and members, my name is Kevin Lawrence. I'm Executive Director at TMPA. We represent over 32,000 law enforcement officers across the state, including thousands of deputy sheriffs. As a matter of fact, our largest local association is the Dallas County Sheriff's Association. We really appreciate Representative Munoz authoring this bill. We also appreciate you taking Frederick Fraser under your wing, but we'll talk about that later. He needs a lot of training, by the way. I think it's important to point out that Representative Munoz pointed out to you, municipal agencies that have adopted civil service already have this provision. State officers already have this provision. Sheriff's departments are at a competitive disadvantage because they don't have this provision. And I would argue it takes more to train up somebody to patrol the unincorporated areas of a large county than it does to train up somebody to patrol the incorporated areas of a city. There's just more they have to learn. There's more people, there's a whole lot of different dynamics that they have to be willing to take into consideration. And that's why it takes them up to a year and $100,000. So it's a competitive disadvantage, as well as we just need these cops out here. I'm sorry, but we're having a recruiting crisis statewide, nationwide. And if we can find a way to hang on to some good employees, we should do everything we can. So we wholeheartedly support this effort. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, members. Any questions for this witness? Chair recognizes Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for bringing this bill, and thanks to our law enforcement officers. So let me get this straight. this boggles my imagination. Someone can be injured in the line of duty, protecting me, my family, my house, my property, my business, my county, my neighborhood. And because the recovery time from the gunshot wound they suffered protecting me and my county, they could just end up losing their job. And at the same time, they either go COBRA or lose their insurance as well at the same time. Is that right?
Yes, sir. And I will tell you,
Okay.
explaining that to a law enforcement officer is difficult enough, but I've had to explain it to their next of kin. I've had to explain it to their families about why their family is losing their entire livelihood because that cop got shot in the line of duty protecting their neighbors. And by the way, the county cannot do this on their own. They can't do it of their own volition because of the provisions that impact the retirement systems. So this has to come from the state level.
Fair enough. And I'm just going to make one comment, and that is I never, ever in committee hearings voice whether I'm for or against a bill, but I'm for this bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 995? Seeing none, Chair recognizes Representative Munoz to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for your attention and the opportunity to hear from the witnesses. And as we mentioned before, we're just trying to bring in a little bit more parity in terms of the counties that don't have this versus some of the municipalities that already would have adopted it. And you've heard the examples of various situations where we've had officers injured in the line of duty and unfortunately are not able to keep their job because of not having the provision or the protection in the law that will allow them to do so. So with that, Madam Chair and members, I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns that would arise even outside of the hearing, and I would ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you. At this time, the substitute is withdrawn and House Bill 995 is left pending. The chair lays out House Bill 1282 and recognizes Representative Blesa to explain.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and members of this committee for letting me lay out House Bill 1282. This bill addresses an issue that I care deeply about, and I know many of you care deeply about, our veterans and our military personnel. All of us have heard that our district, our county jails within our district are the largest provider of mental health services within our areas. This is very concerning, knowing that the data shows that our veterans returning from war theater are seeing 9% of our U.S. veterans in the criminal justice system. 6% of our federal inmates who have prior service history are ending up in our state and county jails. These are real people. They volunteered to put the uniform on and fight for our freedom. The high risks of incarcerations result from a variety of complex factors having to do with military culture. Some are PTSD, depression, anxiety, increased risks of attempted suicide. These are of high concern to me. Veterans who collide with the criminal justice system are even at a higher risk of committing suicide. They have a distinct military culture. They have medical characteristics that are different from those who have not served. And it's important for our jailers to know that these traits, what these traits are and how to respond. House Bill 1282 will allow our county jailers to take a class, which can be delivered online on best practices on how our county jailers interact with veterans. The information and the resources available to them will help our veterans have a better understanding of the system and our county jailers a better understanding of how to interact with these veterans. It will create a safe jail environment for both the jailers and the inmates. It is important for our jailers to understand that these circumstances and characteristics and avoid the risks of non-compliant behavior and avoid injury to the jailer or victim or veteran. Members, this bill will keep our justice-involved veterans safe and on a better foot to rehabilitate and remedy the problems that landed them in jail in the first place. This bill will also improve jailers' ability to maintain order and security within their correctional facilities and go home unharmed to their families every night. The Texas Veteran Commission worked in collaboration to develop TCOL 3917, a jailers training program. TVC believes, as do I, that all good training should be revisited, updated, revised to reflect best practices today. And members, I'm in awe of the enthusiasm around this bill. I have been contacted by stakeholders just yesterday that want to be involved in creating this this instructional material. So TVC has asked me to do a CMESA, which I will get to you guys as soon as Ledge Council gets to me. So this bill does not have a fiscal note, and I respectfully request your consideration to pass this to the Calendars Committee. If you have any questions, I will take them now. I also have some witnesses that can answer some questions for you as well.
Thank you, members. Are there any questions for the representative? Okay, thank you. The chair calls Mitch Fuller. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Madam Chair, Representatives, my name is Mitch Fuller. I'm the Legislative Director for the Veterans of Foreign Wars Department of Texas, the Texas VFW. I want to thank Representative Plessa for introducing this bill, and I'm here to testify on behalf of the VFW for the bill. And I want to thank Representative Plessa for all her support for veterans as a staff member and now as an elected state representative. A reminder to the committee, this month marks the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. So be sure and welcome home and thank Vietnam veterans for their service. It's also the 20th anniversary of the beginning of the Iraq War, and that's where I serve. So this month is a big milestone in the veterans community. We fully support this bill. Representative Plessa laid out the data on veterans who are incarcerated. And in a different role, I also serve on a foundation that supports the Williamson County Veterans Treatment Court. So there's a lot of veterans who interact with the criminal justice system who aren't aware of some of the benefits that are available to them. And this is a great way to educate those who work in the criminal justice system to help us support veterans and make them aware of what's available to them, because a lot of veterans don't even know what's available to them. So this is a bill we enthusiastically support. It helps a part of our population that are at risk, as Representative Plessa laid out. So we fully support the bill, and I want to thank Madam Chair, all that you do, your committee, the state of Texas does to support veterans in the state of Texas. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service. Members, are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Chair calls Blake Harris, Dr. Blake Harris. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Good morning. Thank you. Dr. Blake Harris, clinical forensic psychologist, director of the Veterans Mental Health Department for the Texas Veterans Commission, and I'm here as a resource on the bill. As was laid out by Representative Plessa, our Veterans Mental Health Department is a big stakeholder in the Justice Involved Veteran world. We have a Justice Involved Veteran program. Through that, we try and leverage our technical assistance and training for law enforcement. There may be a touch point across the criminal justice continuum for veterans. We work closely already with Texas Commission on Jail Standards, Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. We did develop the training in question, the 3917 that was in our department. We're more than happy to update it, make sure that it is fresh, contemporary, and meets the needs of the jailers. All of the staff that we have, including myself, in our JIV program, have worked in the forensic world with veterans and with veteran stakeholders. We understand the demands that are there within jails for folks to maintain staffing ratios and get training and get it expedited, make sure that it's high caliber and high quality, and that's our main goal.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Harris, for being here today. Can you, really, really brief mission statement tell us what the purpose of the Texas Veterans Commission is?
Sure. Yeah. For the Texas Veterans Commission, we know that first thing, and I always lead with every presentation I give with saying we're not the VA, and that's not to besmirch or throw shade on the VA, but we are not the VA. The VA is a national federal organization. We do work closely with them at the national level on initiatives for veterans' mental health and veteran services. We also work with them at the VISN level here in Texas, VISN 17 and VISN 16, which cover all of our 254 counties in Texas. But the Texas Veterans Commission is made up of multiple different departments, things where we help folks get connected to claims benefits and get service connected. Also, Veterans Employment Department, education services to make sure that they are aware and get access and utilize all of the benefits that are to them for the education. There's an entrepreneur program, our women's veteran program. There's also the Funds for Veterans Assistance, which if you buy any of those scratch-off tickets that say veterans, that's great. That is money that goes back into the community. And then there is our Veterans Mental Health Department as well.
So it's an organization that's committed to our veterans and.
Yes, sir. We work with national, state, and local community stakeholders.
And I personally really appreciate all that you do for our veterans. So I know that you're neutral on the bill. You cannot take a position on that. But from a philosophical standpoint, Texas Veterans Commission advocates for training.
I will say that I have two deliverables to my boss and our executive director and our commissioners, and that is training and technical assistance. So our goal is to take the word to the people, train people on veterans' needs, resources, unique challenges, and opportunities to connect them to services. So in short, yes, training is very important.
That training is for me to as a layman, to say that training is a vital component in taking care of our veterans.
Yes, and folks don't know what they don't know, and God bless them. There's a lot of folks that want to roll up their sleeves and want to help, educating them on how to do it and what are some of the things they may encounter. And this is relevant for someone who may be a veteran who's going to roll up their sleeves and work in a peer capacity. And we have our Military Veteran Peer Network that's built around that core structure. Or when you have professionals, and we know that licensed mental health professionals, so my training as a psychologist did not include how to work with veteran population. That has to be sought outside. So just between that and every other touch point to include law enforcement, force contact, jailers, there's an opportunity to educate folks on veterans' needs and how they can help meet them within their role.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Yes, sir.
Members, any other questions? Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chair calls Brandon Wood. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Brandon Wood, Executive Director, Texas Commission on Jail Standards. I'm here serving as a resource for this bill and happy to answer any questions that you may have. I would like to add a few things. I believe Dr. Harris did an excellent job laying out some of the parameters, and the representative did a great job laying out the bill as well. This issue has been identified in the Texas Coordinating Council of Veteran Services as one of the unmet needs, and this is an attempt, if I'm not mistaken, to address one of those unmet needs to continue to serve justice-involved veterans that we do unfortunately encounter in our county jails on an all too regular basis. Currently, there are approximately 21,000 county jailers across the state of Texas, those positions that would be impacted by this bill. And I believe that the approach that's going to be taken would make this training more convenient and acceptable for them to be able to take it. And using models similar to how 4900, which was a previous mental health class, as to how it can be provided to these jailers across the state at minimal impact to them, because you've heard multiple times that staffing at county jails is an issue. So trying to take that into account and balance all the issues that they are facing is something I believe that the author and Veterans Commission is very well aware of and is working towards.
Okay. Thank you, members. Any questions? Chair recognizes Representative Orr.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. The bill is for jailers with 1 year of experience or more. Is that because new jailers already get this training?
My understanding at this time is that this specific training is not included in the basic jailers course that is being taken, whether there's going to be discussions that it be included in new jailer training moving forward, or if it will only be required of those after they've reached 1 year of service. I'm not aware at this time, but I believe that is probably something that will be discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
Chair recognizes Brian Hawthorne. Can you please state your name, whom you represent, and your position on the bill?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Brian Hawthorne. I'm the Chambers County Sheriff, and I'm the legislative chairman for the Sheriff's Association of Texas. We're here on the bill. Any kind of a resource, we only have one concern, and we'll gladly work with the author of the bill. It's just how lengthy this training is going to be, because the bill does not specify. So obviously for us, it's very important. I will not go over exactly what Director Woods discussed, because the training and the amount of training and the hours of training and us removing somebody from the floor to train can be difficult. I don't think there's a sheriff in Texas or possibly in the nation that is fully staffed up in his jail. So staffing is very important. But we're more than welcome to work with the author on the bill and try and work through any issues that we can.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay. Thank you for your testimony.
All right.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1282? Seeing none, Chair recognizes Representative Plessa to close.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to lay this bill out, Chairwoman and members. Representative Orr, to answer your question, the committee sub will kind of wrap some of the jailers that were missing at the beginning of their training, and then some established jailers. We're going to wrap them up in the committee sub, and we're going to establish that it's going to be no longer than 1 hour training that can be done online, so it's not going to affect any of the issues that came up. And Chairwoman, if I'm allowed, I would just like to read a quick statement from Richard Stewart, a U.S. Army retired veteran, about some of his experiences locked up in a county jail in Harris County. Myself and other vets, guilty or not, were more subdued and cooperative lot when treated with some form of respect. They were very slow to anger, but when angered, depending on age, could become less cooperative, quick, and in a hurry. Vets are used to discipline throughout our whole lives. When discipline is used in a disregarded fashion, it results in a quickly changing negative mindset. This should be avoided, and considering a short time of training could cure this problem, steps should be taken. I hope you agree. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for letting me lay this out. I hope to get your vote on this bill, and I close.
Thank you, Representative Plessa. House Bill 1282 will be left pending at this time. The chair lays out House Bill 484. Representative Rosenthal offers a committee substitute, and the chair recognizes Representative Mesa to explain.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman, Chairwoman, and committee members. They're holding the bus for me, so it's okay. House Bill 484 is about suicides in Texas jails. It's been a significant issue in recent years in our area and probably in yours too. It accounts for almost a fourth of all the deaths in our Texas prisons, and that makes it second leading cause of death only after illness. And so there's been a decrease in jail suicides from their peak point, but jail suicide is a preventable death, and it's a death that the state should work to prevent. In 2021, so that's not too far back, they found that more than half of all the deaths by suicides were those on suicide watch, indicating that more work needs to be done to address suicides in Texas jails. Research has been done to develop strategies to address jail suicides, and a meta-analysis from last year found that two things: screening of inmates and proper staff training were the most fundamental components of suicide prevention in jails and prisons. So in the 85th legislative session, we had SB 1849, and that passed, and it established the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. It was not established, it was updated the intake process to better screen for mental health. And subsequently, the suicide rate in Texas jails has decreased. However, the Texas Commission on Jail Standards intake process only applies to county jails. So House Bill 484 will address the gap in suicide prevention requirements among jailers in municipalities and expand on the multi-component, those two things that we mentioned, the suicide screening of inmates and the proper staff training, that strategy in Texas jails. So the substituted version of 484 has a minimum 2-hour training for correctional officers on suicide prevention in jails, use the standards adopted by the Commission on Jail Standards for county jails to conduct and document mental health screenings during the intake process. It puts cameras in the halls outside the cell of those identified as suicidal, conducts regular checks on those described as suicidal, and asks that we report any attempted or death by suicide in jails to the Office of the Attorney General within 48 hours of the incident. So this would be an important step in preventing jail suicides, ensuring the safety of all individuals in correctional facilities. And by implementing the above measure, we can reduce the number of preventable deaths in Texas jails.
Thank you, members. Are there any questions for Representative Mesa? Okay, there are no questions. We'll proceed to testimony.
Okay.
Chair calls Brandon Wood.
Brandon Wood, Executive Director, Texas Commission on Jail Standards. Madam Chair, members, I can provide any information that you may need in regards to the current operations of the Commission on Jail Standards when it comes to the intake screening for
In your position on the bill.
I am a resource witness only, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. The original form that was put into place was created in the 2000-2001 timeframe, and it was updated, as the representative mentioned, in 2015, and it has resulted in a reduction in suicides in county jails. Unfortunately, in 2015, we experienced a high of 35 suicides in our county jails across the state of Texas. Should be noted that that was not just unique to Texas. Other states were experiencing the same thing, as was the general population. We've had a low of 17 suicides, and we currently are trending around the 27 suicides per year at this time. The requirements that are currently in place are available on the website, to include the form and the instructions to utilize the form, and again, we will serve as a resource if called upon to do so.
Thank you, members. Are there any questions for this witness? Okay. Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 484? Seeing none, Chair recognizes Representative Mesa to close.
Thank you for committee for hearing this bill. Thank you, Representative Rosenthal, for the substitute. I think it is important to try to reduce suicides in our jails, and I feel like this bill passing would go a long way toward helping toward that, so I hope for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Representative Mesa. At this time, the substitute is withdrawn and House Bill 484 is left pending. I'm going to pass the gavel to Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 3477 and recognizes Chairwoman Niave Criado to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members, for the opportunity to present House Bill 3477. This is legislation that will ensure that candidates for sheriff's office have the experience necessary to be effective right on day one. This legislation was originally filed by former Representative Phil King, who's now Senator Phil King. There's slight difference in language, but this is identical to the Senate bill, the companion bill that we have. We want to thank the Sheriff's Association of Texas, which represents all 254 sheriffs in the county, for working with us and for supporting this legislation. So first, I'm just going to touch briefly on the current sheriff qualifications and the issues that they're causing or need to be addressed, and then second, how this qualifications bill will make the candidate pool increasingly more qualified to serve in the position. So here, the sheriff's office, they're responsible for providing law enforcement services to unincorporated areas of the county, as well as supporting municipal law enforcement within the county. And then in 235 out of the 254 counties, the sheriff operates a county jail. They're responsible for justice-involved individuals, people who are accused, that are, and in most counties, a sheriff also assumes responsibility for courthouse security. The legislature, there's specific language in the Constitution in Article 523 that says that the legislature can prescribe qualifications of the sheriff's office. So this is what we're doing with this legislation. Currently, under the local government code, the qualification to be eligible to run for sheriff is, one, you have to have a high school diploma or a GED, and second, you have to be eligible for and be able to pass a peace officer licensing exam. With this legislation, essentially, and let me just say, one of the issues that has come up in the past for individuals who are not peace officers is that they are then having to spend about 8 hours a day attending a police training academy for about 12 weeks. And all that time is time that you have office personnel, the jails and citizens don't have the sheriff overseeing a lot of this because they're in training. So what this legislation is going to do is establish additional qualifications. It adds that one would have to be a currently licensed or hold an active permanent peace officer license. They have to also have either 5 years of experience as a full-time paid peace officer or be a federal special investigator. Or they can have 10 years of combined active duty or National Guard service experience and be a military veteran. And then the fourth prong of the statute is that, or the bill, is that they would be required to hold an intermediate, advanced, or master proficiency certificate. We have Sheriff's Association and experts who can speak to this. They want this legislation. They're specifically requesting assistance. From my understanding, all of our current sheriffs have agreed that this update is needed. And so with that, I'm happy to answer questions. I think we have the experts here who can testify to the need, and I reserve my right to close.
Very good. Members, any questions for the chairwoman? If there are no questions, we'll proceed to testimony. Chair calls Ray Skiffries. I hope I didn't butcher your name too bad, sir.
Oh, I did mention this in a hearing last week that in my entire educational career, I've had one teacher get it right on the first time. So it's a good try. My name is Ray Cyphers. I'm the sheriff in Hockley County, Texas. And I'm in my second term as sheriff. A little bit about me really quickly.
Can you please state your position?
Oh, yes,
on the bill?
for the bill. Sorry.
Okay, very good.
Sorry. I'm a little excited. I've been waiting and
Me too.
to do this.
I get you.
So, in addition to sheriff, I also serve as an adjunct instructor at head of university in Lubbock County. It will remain unnamed. There's a couple of good ones there. And I teach academic courses and academy courses at South Plains College and at our cadet academy there as well. So I think you laid out pretty much my testimony. So really, truly, this actually is a benefit in adding to having already licensed. There was a lot of things I wish I knew when I took office, and even having 10 years experience before I got here, having education and formal training before I got here, there's still some things I really wish that I knew. Running our jails, while we have a law enforcement division, we are, yes, the keeper of the peace. We are statutorily doing those two things. Our jails really is where our liability is. And having that experience and having that education, having that training and operating and overseeing jail operations is key. And someone who does not come from that background or does not have that education or that experience, it proves to be a challenge. So I will keep it short because I know it's been a long morning for all of you. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Members, any questions for this witness? Chair recognizes Representative Tinderholt.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. So I haven't been able to talk to my sheriff. You may know Sheriff Wayburn.
Yes.
I'm guessing he probably supports something like this. I have some concern over one piece of this, and it's the really small counties where, has anyone thought about whether this might limit what you can actually get from the community? Because I think you'd end up having to get someone from out of the community to come in. So as I was talking through this bill with my staff, we just had concerns that it might limit some of these smaller counties for a pool of candidates.
Sure.
And it would automatically disqualify people that might be amazing at it. So can you?
And could be. And I think that, and looking at this, I think Doc could probably, coming from a much more rural county than me, can probably speak more to that issue. But I think that if someone is wanting to seek that office and can seek that office, to me, I believe that the academy and holding a permanent license is a good first step. Okay. To know exactly what it is they're walking into. Because I've heard it personally, and this is strictly anecdotal evidence. I can tell you that some folks will get into the office, and I didn't know that I had to do this.
The jail?
And then when they realize just how much that entails, it is a big deal to operate that jail, and we've heard testimony already about the importance of our jails and the training and requirements. Every session, legislatures have taken up our professional standards. And we seek, along with the legislature, to increase those professional standards. And it would make sense that our administrators could also benefit from that, not just our deputies, not just our telecommunicators, not just our jailers.
I was on public safety the last couple sessions, and I agree. I think that the profession as a whole, including leadership, has tried to professionalize the job, the career, the position. And I'm appreciative of that, especially in the tone across America right now. But thank you for your service, and thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Questions.
Anyone else have questions for this witness? Thank you for your testimony.
very
Thank
much.
you for your service. Chair calls Doc Wigington. Thank you for being here. Would you please state your name, your position on the bill, and who you represent?
I'm Sheriff Doc Wigington. I am in favor of the bill. I'm Throckmorton County Sheriff. I'm representing, I guess, myself and rural sheriffs across the state. I think that this bill is going to be able to raise the professionalism of the position of the office of the sheriff. And that in the day and time that we have now, I believe that this office is, with it being the chief law enforcement officer in the county across the state, that this office needs to have someone that is a professional, is not just may happen to be the most popular guy, maybe at the local bar, that may get upset at the sheriff and things. That, this position is a lot of responsibility. I've been in law enforcement since 1993, and even that long, when I got elected in 2017, the work and the responsibilities were still a little bit overwhelming coming into the office of sheriff. So someone with no knowledge of law enforcement and no knowledge of what it takes to put in, to be a professional and to take care of all the responsibilities would be very difficult. And we've seen over the last few years of some that have come in like that, and then they've either resigned and gone to work somewhere else as a deputy, or they've just left the profession altogether, and are not seek re-election when it came up because of the overwhelmingness of it. I'm fortunate that I do not have to run a jail. Unfortunately, in smaller rural counties like Representative Tinderholt mentioned, I am from a rural county. I'm also fortunately I don't run a jail, but unfortunately I'm the tax assessor collector. So there are some sheriffs in rural counties in Texas that when elected sheriffs, you're also the tax assessor collector. So when you take on that position, you're not only coming into something you don't know about as sheriff, you're also coming into the tax assessor collector position. So someone that's not, and that was a big learning curve for myself. So someone that doesn't have that law enforcement, so you got to learn two jobs. So if you don't have an idea of law enforcement and trying to learn two, it's going to be very difficult for someone. So I'm very in favor of this bill.
Very good.
And I'll entertain any questions from anyone.
So thank you very much. You've been in law enforcement for roughly 30 years.
Yes, sir.
Elected as sheriff for how long? 6 years?
No, I took office in 2017.
Okay. Okay, very good. Well, first, thank you so much for your service.
Yes, sir.
Any questions for this witness? Thank you so much, sir. Chair calls Buddy Mills. Hello, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Please state
Or good
your name, who
afternoon, I
you represent, afternoon, whatever it is. Please state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill.
I am Buddy Mills, the sheriff of Gillespie County and also the president of the Sheriff's Association of Texas. Thank you so very much for hearing me today, Madam Chair, Chairman, and members. We want you to know that the Sheriff's Association and the Sheriffs of Texas, as you heard, are very appreciative of the opportunity to have this bill brought forward to increase the likelihood that every Texan would have a qualified sheriff to manage the law enforcement operations when they walk in. So with that, I'm going to answer any questions that you may have. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to y'all, but you can understand the importance of it, as you've already heard, and you may hear some more today. So if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, sir. Any questions for this witness? Thank you for being here again,
Thank
buddy.
you so much.
Chair calls Brian Hawthorne. We save the best for last, sir.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Please state your name, who you're with, and your position on the bill.
Yes, sir. I'm Brian Hawthorne. I'm Sheriff of Chambers County, and I'm the legislative chairman for the Sheriff's Association of Texas. This bill is pretty much exactly what everybody has said prior to me, so I really don't want to dig in any deeper. What I would like to say, I've been a sheriff now 10 years. I'm retired from the Department of Public Safety, where I was a highway patrol sergeant. I was overwhelmed when I became the sheriff, had no idea. I thought after doing a career as a state trooper and as a supervisor with DPS that it would be a simple job. There's nothing simple. 10 years today, so to speak, I'm on my 10th year as sheriff. I'm still learning things that I'm amazed by. I can't even imagine being that person that did not have some form of law enforcement experience or career or military understanding leadership, because it really is it is a true job about leadership. It is a true job about knowing what you can do and what you cannot do. And you don't know those things if you haven't worked as a law enforcement officer. So I'm going to tell you just a quick little story, and I don't want to get too elaborate on it because it's a real story and it's dealing with real people. So a county very close to me elected a school bus barn mechanic as the sheriff. One term, fortunately, cost the county and our insurance carriers plenty of money, civil rights violations. There's so much involved in being a sheriff and so much involved about running a county jail that this is a very important bill, and I hope y'all will consider it and vote it out favorably.
Thank you for your testimony.
No,
Mr.
thank
Service
you.
Members, any questions for this witness? Thank you so much. Chair recognizes Chairwoman Criado to close.
Thank you, members, and Representative Tinderholt, we'll dig into and get an answer as well from your sheriff. My understanding is that all of the sheriffs in the state are supportive of this, and we would respectfully request a favorable vote on this when it comes up. Thank you.
I think I'm supposed to ask if there is anyone else who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3477. Hearing none, House Bill 3477 will be left pending at this time.
Okay, and members, that concludes today's agenda. Is there any further business for the committee to address? If not, the chair moves to adjourn. This committee stands adjourned, subject to the call of the chair.